Hi, and welcome to this episode of Consciousness and Me. My name is Josephine, and today I thought we were going to talk a bit about quirkiness, actually. Um, I think when I but when spirituality started to become more of my life, I went into this trap of aiming for holiness or trying to be some kind of perfect embodiment of, I don't even know how to put it into words, but like a perfect person somehow. Perfection, aiming for perfection somehow. And I'm still on this journey. I haven't reached some kind of final stage or a goal. I'm in a constant unfolding, and my understanding of myself and the universe is still unfolding and has been unfolding for years. So, this whole channel is not about sharing the absolute truth or knowing the answers. It's sharing my perspective from where I am now. And to be honest, that's likely to change. I might say different things in a few months or in a few years, but that's not really the point, because I don't see this as a teaching channel. I see this as a sharing of perspectives, guiding each other to finding our own truth. And there is this phrase that I absolutely love. It goes, "We're all just walking each other home." And I think that's so beautiful because it takes away all of these expectations that we have to be right, we have to be correct, we have to phrase ourselves in the perfect way so that no one can criticize it. No, we're just trying to express ourselves, minimize misunderstandings, learn from each other. Yeah. So I did have a red thread here now. Let me think back to what that was. Oh yeah, the quirkiness. So initially I had a view of wanting to be some kind of perfect embodiment of what I envisioned to be holy or to be enlightened. But that has slowly been chipped away, and that has not been very pleasant. That's been quite brutal. And the way I see it right now is actually I'm realizing that part of this awakening process is realizing that I am not who I think I am. I am not who my mind tells me to be. And Adyashanti, who is a spiritual teacher coming from Zen Buddhism, he expresses it so beautifully, I find. He says that whoever you think you are, that's definitely not who you are. Because your thoughts can never tell you who you are. So if you have a thought, a description, or an image, you can know for sure that's not who you are. You can only be who you are. And on the one hand, that sounds very poetic. It sounds beautiful. But my gruesome understanding is that all of these beautifully poetic expressions that I initially thought were like, written on a wall, or like more of a bit of a cliche almost, I realized that they're not. That's the most accurate way to point to the truth. And so goes for this one as well. Because often, the reason we even have an idea of who we are is because when growing up, we were mirrored with the fact that some part of us weren't welcome, weren't lovable, or even our surroundings couldn't handle them at the moment. Maybe we were too loud in a classroom, so we were told to quiet down. Maybe our parents couldn't handle our anger, so we were clearly shown that when we're angry, they cannot show us love and understanding. So it comes with these subtle cues when growing up, and that's not to blame our surroundings, that's just part of the human conditioning of growing up in a world. So instead, we start to form this image of like, okay, so I'm not supposed to be a loud person, and I'm not supposed to be an angry person. And over the year, you accumulate this image of who you're supposed to be, and you start to identify, you start to invest in this person, and you start to act like this person, and you start to show up as this person, and you even believe that's who you are. And when these sides of yourself, your authentic self, because maybe you have an inclination to be quite loud. So when those sides comes up, or when you get mirrored that now you're being loud or too loud, there's this almost like a bodily reaction, and you probably deny that that's even who you are. You might attack the person, or you might feel shame, or you might pretend it never happened. We have so many defense mechanisms against this. It can be both aimed externally, or it can be aimed internally. So when we start to question, if I'm really this image, is this really who I am? And it starts to crumble. It is rarely, definitely not in my case, it doesn't go all at once. So maybe some parts of it is still intact, but you start to realize that I don't need to be a quiet person. So all of a sudden, you realize that who you authentically are, when you don't mask yourself, when you do not reference any idea of who you are, but you actually express from the depth of your being, from your own truth, from your own essence, your creativity, your love, your happiness, when it comes out spontaneously, it might come out in ways that your self-image doesn't really approve of. And this can be uncomfortable. We get to face lots of unpleasant emotions in that journey. But this is where the real awakening, in my experience, the real awakening can happen. Or the real, maybe, alignment, you should say. Because if we shy away from looking at these friction points inside, we're going to be not exposing those part of our ego structure. And ego structure, for me, in my language, is the same as the belief of the image who we are. Believing that we are the thoughts we think about ourselves. So if we avoid going to these uncomfortable things, if we avoid looking at the shame, the judgment of others, the feeling less than worthy, we're going to miss out on digging out these parts where love can't flow, where freedom is not seen properly. And for me, this has taken the form of realizing that I'm a bit more quirky than I am. Like, for instance, I had this really, when the mind kind of stops, when you just get dumbfounded. With my dad, it was too long ago, like a year ago or something. But he was sitting watching golf one evening when I was down south visiting them. And somehow I was talking with him while standing up, and I was half doing this stretch because I had a little tension in my hip and in my thigh. And then somehow I realized it felt pretty, I don't know, it felt comfortable to like drag my foot on the floor. So I guess I was looking like a 4-year-old. When a 4-year-old speak with their parents, sometimes they have these bodily positions and they have their arm above the head, and they don't behave like an adult. So I think I was looking something like that. And my dad didn't really respond to what I was saying. He said, like, "You're quite goofy, aren't you?" And I remember thinking that, huh? He thinks I'm goofy. It just went straight across the whole narrative I had of myself in relation to him, because I thought he had a vision of me, or at least I tried to live up to that subconsciously somehow, being this strong and independent woman who knew the answers. And now he mirrors back that he has an image of me being goofy. And these two worlds collided somehow. And I think if he would have said that to me a few years ago, I would have probably been quite upset. But now it's almost like I got this laughing impulse that the body sometimes gets when something with tension is released. It was like I finally got to see this, wow, I'm trying to live up to an expectation that my dad has of me, that I need to be ordered in some way. And this was just pure liberation from that, because obviously, firstly, I failed on that. And the second thing is that, wow, I thought I was freeing myself from living according to this script. But here I can see that I'm still not. And that's a gift. The world is full of these gifts that might land as with laughter, but maybe not always. It can be super uncomfortable to get something mirrored back from someone, not because they're mean, but just because that's their authentic impression of us that we don't want to see. That we don't, either because we don't want to, we acted from something that wasn't true for ourselves. We acted from a value that's not actually ours. Or it could be that they mirror back one of these sides that we have suppressed within ourselves. And another side within myself that I've noticed is bubbling up more and more is that I'm quite a messy person. I have a tendency to do things, and then when I'm done, I just put them down wherever I happen to be. So it easily becomes chaotic around me, and I'm looking into the room now, which you luckily cannot see because there's some clothes lying around, some coffee cups here, and some paper that's halfway through a project. And it's been like that my whole life. But before, I think I have been shaming it a little bit, of thinking that, oh, people cannot see me, cannot see that this is how it looks like, needing to tidy up, almost pretending for myself that that's not the way it is. And the more I've relaxed into it, of being, I don't need to follow the rules of how my home looks like or how my surroundings look like. I will accommodate other people. I will make room for them. Or when I feel I need to tidy up, I tidy up because it's convenient to have it tidied up sometimes. But it's not a personal flaw. That's just the way my makeup is. I don't make it a goal into making a mess, but I also don't try to stop it regardless of the price. Like, it's not on top of my head to stop my messiness. So there's these sides of me that's starting to shine through more and more. That's not necessarily approved by my own conditioning. And I think that's the way for many of us. We live in a society where we're often trained in different ways and through school systems, at least in Sweden, that in a way rewards conformity, not to 100%, but you're supposed to sit down for 45 minutes and you're supposed to enjoy hanging out in your whole school group and talking in front of people. And it's this, you get fed with the narrative that this is what's expected of you as a person in society that goes beyond the necessity of being part of a society that makes society functional. It becomes more of like this is how you show up. And that's not needed. That makes us more thinking that we're all the same, but that's not how life made us. We all have these unique gifts and unique little quirks. And it also has this little, what's that called? Like a spinning wheel. Like once you feed it with energy, it becomes more. Because what I don't allow in myself, I judge in other people. So if I'm not allowed to be goofy or behave in a way that's not adult and responsible and professional in every scenario, then I don't allow other people to do that. So if they express themselves authentically in that way, they will meet my judgment. And that makes it less likely for them to express authentically, or at least makes it harder for them because they get the message that it's not welcome. So the more we allow ourselves to express authentically, the more we allow other people to do the same. There's this phrase that says, taking up space is giving space. And of course, you can misunderstand that if you want to, but what I see that is pointing to, it's actually when you liberate yourself, you liberate everyone else as well. If I'm allowed to be messy, if I'm allowed to not always be on top of things, then so is everyone else. They don't get my judgment when they show up like that. On the other hand, I celebrate their authenticity. Because that's when life gets fun. We want to interact with each other from the truth of who they are. That's where the magic happens, I was about to say. But according to non-duality, love is what we feel in the absence of separation. So when I get to meet someone else authentically, when they show me who they truly are without a facade, it is more likely that we will connect without separation. There will be more love flowing. At least the potential for love flowing is increasing. Such a juicy journey, this self-exploration, dropping all beliefs and all ideas. But the spiritual path, I'm not going to say it has to be like that. There are suggestions in history of people spontaneously awaken in the blink of an eye, and then they stay, and then their whole body-mind realigns with that straight away. But for most people, it seems like that is not the case. You get an awakening, or you see true who you truly are. And then after that comes a realignment process to live that understanding. How do I live in this world with this new realization that I am not my thoughts? I'm not my self-identity that I created over the years. How do I live that truly? And how do I embody it? How do I get my, even though it feels right now like I am in a conflict with someone else, how do I understand that no, on a deeper level, that's not true? And I think it's Adyashanti again. It's a lot of quotes from him this time. But I think he also says that if there's a book about the whole enlightenment process from realization, from being a separate self, believing in the ego, to being fully enlightened and having a very slim chance of ever falling back, so established in enlightenment, then the path of awakening is the first chapter, and the rest of the book is about how to align it with the rest of your life, how to live from that understanding and still function in the world, still have relationships, still make a living, still contributing, still managing your boundaries, still feeding yourself. That's the rest of the book. And sometimes you even go back to before chapter 1. You have to read the first page again because you forgot. And then sometimes you can skip all the way to chapter 12. Read the footnotes. At least that's my experience. I think maybe that's all I wanted to say for now. And if you find this interesting, and if you have any comments or any questions, please do share in the comments below. And if you want more content like this, please subscribe. And if you like the video, please like the video. It helps my channel, and it boosts my enthusiasm for sharing. And I hope to see you next time.